Adam was the first man. From him descended Seth, then Enosh, then Kenan, then Mahalo, then Jared, then Enoch, then Methuselah, then Lamech, and then Noah. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. The sons of Japheth were Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. The sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Dipheth, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Rodanim. The sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The sons of Cush were Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Rama, and Sabteka. The sons of Rama were Sheba and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod, who became a mighty man on the earth. Mizraim fathered Ludim, Anamam, Laabam, Naphtahim, Pathrusim, Casluhim, from whom the Philistines came, and Caphtorim. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Het, and also the Jebusites, Amorites, Girgashites, Hivites, Archites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Hamathites. The sons of Shem were Elam, Ashur, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The sons of Aram were Uz, Hul, Gether, and Meshech. Arphaxad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. Eber had 2 sons, Peleg and Joktan. Joktan fathered Almadad, Sheleph, Hazarmath, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Dikla, Ebal, Abimal, Sheba, Ophor, Havilah, and Jabab. The descendants of Abraham, who was the son of Terah, were listed. Abraham's sons were Isaac and Ishmael. The sons of Ishmael were Nebaioth, Kedor, Abil, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Shter, Nephish, and Kedema. The sons of Keturah, Abraham's concubine, were Zimron, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, Shua. The sons of Jokshan were Sheba and Dedan. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abeda, and Eldah. Isaac had 2 sons, Esau and Israel. The sons of Esau were Eliphaz, Reuel, Jush, Galam, and Korah. The sons of Eliphaz were Taman, Omar, Zephi, Gatam, Kenaz, and Amalek. The sons of Reuel were Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Misa. The chiefs of Edom came from Esau's sons and their descendants. Israel had 12 sons, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. The descendants of Judah included Onan and Shelah. Perez and Zerah were born from Tamar, Judah's daughter-in-law. Perez had sons named Hezron and Hamuel. Zerah had 5 sons, Zimri, Ethan, Heman, Calcol, and Dara. Carmi, a descendant of Zimri, was the father of Acher, who brought disaster on Israel by taking forbidden things. Hezron's descendants included Jerahmeel, Ram, and Cheliabai. Ram fathered Amminadab, and Amminadab fathered Nahshon, a leader of Judah. Nahshon's line led to Boaz, Obed, and Jesse. Jesse had 7 sons, the youngest of whom was David. David's sons included Amnon, Daniel, Absalom, Adnijah, Shephatiah, and Ithream. Solomon was born to Bathshua, the daughter of Amiel. Solomon's descendants included Rehoboam, Abijah, Asa, Jehoshaphat, and a continuing line of kings. The line of kings from David continued through Jeram, Ahaziah, Joash, Amaziah, Azariah, Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, Manasseh, Amon, and Josiah. Josiah had 4 sons, Johanan, Jehoiakim, Zedekiah, and Shallum. Jehoiakim fathered Jeconiah, who was taken captive. The sons of Jeconiah included Shealtiel, and his descendants led to Zerubbabel. The descendants of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, were Hanok, Palu, Hezron, and Carmi. Reuben lost his birthright, because he defiled his father's bed. The birthright was given to the sons of Joseph. The descendants of Joel, from Reuben, included Shemaiah, Gog, Shimei, Micah, Reiah, Bala, Bera, and others who were leaders and carried away by Assyria. The descendants of Gad settled in Bashan. They were mighty men of valor and multiplied during the reigns of Saul and Jotham. The half-tribe of Manasseh lived in the land and became numerous. They transgressed against God and served the gods of the land. So God stirred up the spirit of Pul, the king of Assyria, and he took them into captivity. The sons of Levi were Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Levi's line included Amram, the father of Aaron, Moses, and Miriam. Aaron's sons were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. The priestly line continued through Eleazar. Leading to Zadok, the Levites had specific roles in the tabernacle and temple, including music, gatekeeping, and assisting the priests. David organized them according to their duties. The descendants of Issachar included Tola, Puah, Jashub, and Shimron. They were mighty men of valor, and in David's time, their number was great. The descendants of Benjamin included Bala, Becher, and Jadiel. They too were mighty in battle. Naphtali's sons were Jaziel, Guni, Yezer, and Shalom. The sons of Manasseh included Azriel, Mashir, and Zelophehad, who had daughters only. Ephraim's line included Nun and Joshua. Ephraim's descendants suffered loss when men from Gath killed some of them, but they grew strong again. Asher's descendants were Imnah, Ishva, and Beriah. Saul's genealogy was recorded. His father was Kish, and his sons included Jonathan, Malchishua, Abinadab, and Eshbal. Jonathan's son was Meribal, also known as Mephibosheth. His son was Micah. The Philistines fought Israel, and Saul and his sons died on Mount Gilboa. The Philistines mocked Saul and hung his body on the wall of Bethshan. The men of Jabesh-Gilead retrieved the bodies and buried them. Saul died for his unfaithfulness and consulting a medium, so God turned the kingdom over to David. All Israel gathered to make David king. He had led them before under Saul, and God had chosen him to be shepherd of his people. David captured Jerusalem from the Jebusites. He made it his capital and strengthened it. David became greater and greater, for the Lord was with him. He had many mighty men who supported him. Among David's mighty men were Jashobeam, Eleazar, and Shammah. They performed great feats in battle. 30 warriors risked their lives to get David water from Bethlehem, but David refused to drink it and poured it out to the Lord. Others included Abishai, Benaiah, and the 30 chief warriors. Many joined David at Ziklag and later at Hebron to turn the kingdom to him. David numbered the warriors from the tribes of Israel who came to Hebron to make him king, and they brought food and joy to the assembly. The Levites brought the Ark of the Covenant to Kiriath-Jearim. David gathered all Israel to bring the Ark to Jerusalem, but the first attempt failed when Uzzah touched the Ark and died. David was afraid and left the Ark at Obed-Edom's house. After seeing that God blessed Obed-Edom, David again brought the Ark with rejoicing. He appointed singers and musicians. As the Ark entered the city, David danced with all his might. Michal, Saul's daughter, despised him for it. David set up regular worship at the tent he pitched for the Ark. He appointed Asaph and his relatives to give thanks to the Lord. David gave thanks for God's covenant with Abraham and Israel. He urged the people to seek the Lord and remember his marvelous deeds. David desired to build a temple for the Ark. Nathan the prophet first approved, but later brought a word from God that David would not build the temple. Instead, his son would build it. God promised to establish David's dynasty forever. David responded with humility and praise. David conquered many nations: Philistines, Moabites, Arameans, and others. He dedicated treasures from these victories to the Lord. David reigned with justice and righteousness. He appointed Joab over the army, Jehoshaphat as recorder, Zadok and Ahimelech as priests, and Benaiah over the royal guard. David showed kindness to Mephibosheth, Jonathan's son, and restored to him all that belonged to Saul. David also appointed Levites over the ark and the work of the house of God. He divided the Levites by their clans and assigned them specific responsibilities. The descendants of Gershon, Kohath, and Merari were counted and organized. The Levites were to assist the sons of Aaron in the service of the temple. From the age of 20 and upward, Levites were appointed to oversee the work, to serve, and to give thanks and praise. The sons of Aaron were separated for priestly duties. Nadab and Abihu died without children, so the priesthood continued through Eleazar. Their divisions were set by lot, and 24 groups were established for the priests. These divisions determined the order of service in the house of the Lord. The sons of Levi were organized under their clans for gatekeeping. temple duties and treasuries. The gatekeepers were assigned to guard the thresholds of the tent and the temple. They were responsible for opening and closing the gates and guarding the storerooms. David appointed treasurers and officers for the house of the Lord. These included men who managed the treasures of the sanctuary and the dedicated gifts from battles. Others were placed over the military, over the tribes of Israel, and over the king's property. David organized officials who oversaw the fields, vineyards, storehouses, livestock, and flocks. Jehonathan, David's uncle, was a counselor and a man of understanding. Ahithophel was also a counselor, and Hushai was the king's friend. Joab was commander of the king's army. David summoned all the leaders of Israel, including tribal chiefs, military commanders, stewards, officials, and mighty warriors. He rose and addressed the assembly. He said that he had planned to build a house of rest for the ark of God, but that God had told him not to do so. It's because he had been a man of war and had shed blood. Instead, God had chosen Solomon, his son, to build the temple. David declared that God had chosen Solomon to sit on the throne of the kingdom of the Lord over Israel. David charged Solomon to keep the commandments of the Lord, to seek him and to serve him with a loyal heart and willing mind. He gave Solomon the plan for the temple, its structures, storerooms, upper rooms, inner chambers, and the place of the mercy seat. He provided the divisions of the priests and Levites, the work of the service, and all the articles to be used in the temple. David handed over gold and silver for the temple furnishings and declared that all these plans were given to him by the Spirit. David encouraged Solomon to be strong and courageous, to begin the work and not fear or be dismayed, for the Lord would be with him. He reminded him that the priests and Levites were ready to help, along with the skilled craftsmen and willing workers. David gathered the assembly and told them that he had made preparations for the house of the Lord with all his might. He had provided gold, silver, bronze, iron, wood, onyx, stones, antimony, precious stones, marble, and other materials in abundance. In addition to what he had provided from the kingdom's treasury, David gave from his own personal treasure of gold and silver. He asked the leaders of Israel, who would consecrate themselves and offer willingly to the Lord, the leaders of the tribes, the commanders of the military, and the officials offered willingly. They gave gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and those who had precious stones gave them to the treasury of the house of the Lord. The people rejoiced greatly because they had offered willingly and wholeheartedly to the Lord. David blessed the Lord in the sight of all the assembly. Praise God, saying that greatness, power, glory, victory, and majesty belong to him. He declared that all things came from God, and that he and the people were only giving back what already belonged to the Lord. David acknowledged that life was a passing shadow, and that their days on earth were like a shadow without hope. Yet he rejoiced in the uprightness of the people who had given so generously. David prayed for Solomon, asking the Lord to give him a loyal heart, to keep God's commandments and testimonies, and to build the temple for which David had made provision. He then said to the assembly, "Bless the Lord your God," and the people bowed their heads and worshipped the Lord and the king. The next day they offered sacrifices to the Lord, presenting burnt offerings and peace offerings in great number. They ate and drank before the Lord with great joy. Solomon was anointed king a second time, and Zadok was anointed as priest. Solomon sat on the throne of the Lord as king, in place of his father David. All the leaders and mighty men pledged allegiance to him. And the Lord exalted Solomon greatly in the sight of all Israel. He gave Solomon such royal majesty as had never been seen before in Israel. David, the son of Jesse, reigned over Israel for 40 years. He reigned 7 years in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. He died at a good old age, full of days, riches, and honor. His son Solomon reigned in his place. The acts of David the king, from first to last, were written in the Chronicles of Samuel the seer, Nathan the prophet, and Gad the seer. These accounts recorded all the events of his reign, his power, and the circumstances surrounding him in Israel and the kingdoms of the other lands. This concludes the book of 1 Chronicles. The full Bible documentaries continue. Thank you so much for watching.